Hello Guppies, Virixiss here, and we're not going to talk about depth today. Nope, instead we're going to talk about another game that has been suffering from some of the same problems that depth does in terms of player retention and engagement. Lawbreakers is a game, and you may have heard of it. It's something of a meme in the games industry right now, but we're not going to talk about the myriad of other things that people blame the game's failings on, like taking on Overwatch, the release date and price point, advertising or lack thereof, or even Cliff Belinsky being Cliff Belinsky. Instead, we're going to talk about its population issue and Boss Key's current plan on how to battle that issue. Lawbreakers have taken what might seem to be the most logical course of action. Let's add more content and change the stuff that we do have in an attempt to bring players back into the game and get them excited for it again. But Lawbreakers is an interesting case study in player retention, in that what seems to be the most straightforward answer can not only be wrong, but actively hurt your attempts to garner a player population. So why would adding more content be a bad thing? Well, first we need to understand what Lawbreakers is. A high-skill, fast-paced, twitchy arena shooter. You're going to hear that a lot this episode. This tells us a few things. The base game mechanics around things like movement control and knowing what you are capable of doing needs to be so solid that players can ingrain the game's knowledge into a strong habit loop. When the habit loop is formed, players slip into a flow of play where less time is being worried about small things and more time is spent planning and taking in information. Given this setting, it's not going to be a great idea to just keep throwing new content at the game and piling on new systems, weapons, movement abilities, and new tricks into the game. Take Unreal Tournament 2004, for example, a game that I have sunk entirely too much time into. In that high-skill, fast-paced, twitchy arena shooter, you had consistent maps with the same weapons to expect, timers to keep track of, controls that never changed, and opponents that had the same toolkit and playing environment that you did. This allowed you to know exactly what you were up against when you loaded into a map. Now imagine a new weapon is introduced. This is a new information that everyone has to deal with. They need to learn how the weapon is used, where it spawns, how often it spawns, what to expect when fighting it, and how best to work around it. This can take weeks of relearning before your habit loop is set again and you return to the flow. Now imagine that something else gets added to the game after that. Weeks of relearning. And then a new thing is added, and you can get the idea. Arena shooters are not the kind of game where piling on all the things works. It's a genre that survives on consistency. Now that's not to say that you can never add new things to an arena shooter, you just need to know how to do it at a proper pace so that your players have time to adjust and regroove. This is one of the reasons that Overwatch heroes take so long to release. A new hero means new abilities to learn and adapt to, and you want to make sure your players have time to do so. So, what can Boss Key do? It's difficult to say. For starters, I think the game needs a new player overhaul in terms of both tutorials, easy-to-access information, and is in desperate need of a bot match setting. When I loaded in the tutorial for the first time, the game spent far too much time telling me to do things that are pretty standard for FPS games. WASD movement, mouse aim, how to shoot, switch weapons, etc. This wouldn't be so bad if it wasn't the only tutorial they had. Sure, knowing that I could blind fire was nice, but the tutorial started to mention class-only specifics and then never talked about other classes again. You don't have the option to select a new class to play as, no bot match option to test new classes in, or fuss with your settings. Yeah, there's a target practice room, but it's no substitution for bot matches. There are tutorials in the other classes, but they're only 90-second videos with only text on the screen. This is a lame cop-out for class tutorials, really. Secondly, their game modes. As stated before, this is a FPS, high-skill, fast-paced, twitchy arena shooter. It didn't launch with a deathmatch mode, team or otherwise. It's like opening a sandwich shop without any bread. Without the deathmatch, your arena shooter is going to crumble away and die, which is currently what Lawbreakers is doing, funnily enough. People play shooters to shoot people, and other game modes are there to keep people from burning themselves out on the same game mode over and over again. Halo 3, for instance, made Team Slayer its backbone game type, but gave its players plenty of other things to do if they wanted. When I grew bored of playing Slayer or SWAT, I'd boot into a game of Infected or Griffball. Other game modes are there to make sure your players don't get sick of playing nothing but Team Deathmatch. But don't be fooled, Team Deathmatch is what brought them there to begin with. As with Lawbreakers, this is even more true. Lawbreakers is a game where individual skill really can make the difference in determining the outcome of a match, and so the lack of a Team Deathmatch really was a bad idea. Thirdly, and this is going to be a little bit more drastic, Lawbreakers needs to ignore everything else it's doing and focus on creating new, bigger, better maps, and separate those maps based on game type. Yes, I know I just said that adding stuff into an arena shooter was a potential killer, but hear me out. If your maps suck, then all the options you put into those maps will be essentially worthless, yeah? If your map is prone to snowballing, people won't want to play that map, and you have essentially removed that map from a potential playable list. Maps in arena shooters need to be designed with some points in mind. Access points to key areas such as objectives, traversal options for all your character types and abilities, risk and reward for healing and pickup areas, and slog points, which are areas in a map where, once a fight starts, it will basically never end because players are constantly streaming into it. This is commonly referred to as the middle, but there are other points in different maps. Your maps need to be simultaneously defensible and attackable at the same time. Pick a game type and design a map completely around that game. This way you can design and perform fixes on a map with only one sort of game mode in mind without it affecting any of the others. Lawbreakers has a lot of interesting mechanics at its disposal, like Zero G, Assassin Grapple, and Race Momentum, and it really needs maps to play to those strengths. Instead, what we have are otherwise great arenas to shoot fools in, but when you play Blitzball or Overcharge in the same map, it fucking sucks because the map is far too small for those game types, and the pathways in those maps aren't seemingly balanced with those objectives in mind, or the types of traversal that your characters have at their disposal. For instance, if you're designing a map for Blitzball and the map is too short, the game is going to be dominated by a single Wraith or Assassin character who can grab the ball and score a point before anyone can react to them even having the ball. This is a scenario I've run into every single time I've played Blitzball, and it's ludicrous in every regard. The maps alone have made that game type worthless to me, and that's a shame. I also have a few other nitpicks here. This game is in desperate need for a server browser, or at the very least the ability to queue up for a game type you actually want to play without being forced to play competitive. Blitzball fucking sucks right now, for reasons I've already stated, and I don't want to play it when I hit Quick Match. This game also needs some fucking colorblind options. I have difficulty seeing the color red, and when I'm on a brightly colored map, I often literally can't see the enemy in front of me fast enough to register that he's there. Some kind of major differentiation needs to be made there, or at least give me the option, such as a player pip or larger names over teammate. When you're in the role select screen, you should have the names of the roles indicated under their icons. I'm a new player with less than 5 hours into the game. I don't know what these fucking icons are, and forcing me to spend desperate few seconds to click on each one to find out, especially when you throw me into a match already in progress, isn't fair to me, and it isn't fair to my team. Now, so far this video has been nothing but negative points, but I actually kind of like the Lawbreakers at its core. One of the best matches I ever had was when I finally loaded into a team deathmatch on a gray box map, which I didn't mind, because the map was fairly well done for team deathmatch, and team deathmatch felt really good. Controls are tight, weapons feel good, time to kill is right on, and I haven't encountered anything that looks or feels cheesy yet, besides assassins bouncing everywhere and not being able to track them. I think the Zero G thing is pretty hokey, but some of the other mobility options are pretty okay once you get the hang of them. I think with some team-wide refocus, they could create real quality content that would engage with the audience that would actually care for the game. Because they're out there. People who miss playing Unreal Tournament 2004 until your eyes bled, memorizing where every nook and cranny in the map was, creating practice drills for yourself that could get that shot combo by reflex. They're there. They're older, but they're there. And they're looking for a good game to play until Unreal Tournament 4 comes out. Lawbreakers could be that game and could be successful at that goal. Will it be a multi-billion-dollar franchise? Hell no. Could it be a good game that a solid community could come around to enjoy for a few years? Most definitely. Keep an eye out for more Lawbreaker videos on my channel as we follow the path that Boss Key takes in trying to turn the misfortunes of the game around. I do like the game, and if they fix some of the issues with it, expect me to start singing its praises. Until then, we'll have to watch from afar. This has been Virixiss, and I'll see you guppies next time.